Hello, hello, brothers and sisters. This is Prince Ojong, and this
And
is Larry.
Larry Young, and we're here today to talk about the sham elections in French Africa. Prince John, go ahead.
Yeah, so they just declared a corpse the winner in Cameroon. There's another election in Ivory Coast. So those are the two elections that we're going to talk about. So these elections are really sham elections. What do you think?
I agree. And Prince Ojong, fellow brothers and sisters, Africa, French Africa, has never had democratic elections. The last instance of the mirror image we're talking about, Ivory Coast and Cameroon, these are resource rich dictatorships where the French continue exploiting, extracting raw materials for their industry and for sustaining their high standard of living at the detriment of Africans. What has been happening in these two territories is that the potentates who are there are pro-French. The French want them to remain in power, and the elections are organized just as a masquerade. It's just a sham to legitimize a fraudulent process. I lived through it in 1992 when I was the press secretary of the SDF.
Tell us what happened. So did Frundi really win those elections in 92?
Yes, even General Semenge has now recognized that he won. And Kamto won the other election in 2018. Now Chiruma has won this election. So this is the third stool. There are three stools. It is now clear to even the most peace-loving Africans that democratic elections in Africa are orchestrated to sustain dictatorships. From Yoweri Museveni, who was put by the British M16 right there in Uganda, to Paul Kagame, who was put there by the CIA, to Paul Biya, who says that je suis le meilleur élève du président français, to Alassane Ouattara, who was put there by his friend Nicolas Sarkozy and Prince Ojong. He actually organized a rebellion, trained the northern troops in Burkina Faso, and invaded the country and forced Gbagbo to conduct an election which Gbagbo won, but the French attacked the Unity Palace and removed him to put Alassane Ouattara, who is now running for the fourth term. So this is, I was sympathetic to my colleagues, the journalists who were in Project C, who said, oh, they were using the modern electronic means, all kinds of other AI and new technology to make sure they can monitor the votes. Yes, everybody left with the procès verbal, the electoral scripts, the electoral transcripts, left with them and saw clearly that Chiruma had won the election. In fact, Cabral Libby actually said that he was number 3, and nobody said anything to him. So this is a sham, and the fact that the European Union is saying some innocuous, some little talk about, well, we are asking for peaceful, we are very concerned. That is nonsense. All the West is concerned about regarding Cameroon is the pipeline from Doba, Chad to Kribi in Cameroon, and the resources that they're extracting in Ivory Coast, the oil, the gold. They do not care about Africans having freedom. So there it is. Now, the problem becomes, as Big Man says, if the great problems of the day cannot be solved by parliamentary speeches and debates, they'll be solved by blood and iron. Are we going to have blood and iron in Cameroon? That is the question.
So the way it looks now, so it looks like Chiroma hands are tied. What do you think? What option does he have?
Well, he has the option. Remember, there is an entente cordiale in Cameroon that when the South rules, they hand over to the North, and when the North rules, they hand over to the South. The South has ruled for 43 years with Mr. Biya. Are the Northerners going to accept, as they call them in Cameroon, les moutons, that the sheep just going to accept that they will be led to the slaughter? I don't think so. Remember, Prince, vengeance is a dish that is eaten cold. You savour it when it is cold. The Northerners were killed in the fake coup d'etat of 1984. Millions and millions of them were killed and buried in Balmayo and in Obala. Mm-hmm. They have not forgotten that genocide, that killing, and they are going to revenge, I'm afraid. Now, Prince, we say in my Kenyan language that what happens in the hen's house will happen in the goat's. When Ambazonians were marching with peace plans and they were being killed, and even French journalists and influencers calling them terrorists, they thought that this crisis would end. Now it has crossed Congo. So what happens when freedom is threat anywhere? The thing that you have most, okay, they own the real estate in Douala and Yaoundé, they own the businesses. That is why people like Atanganji say somebody who is selling eggs cannot provoke a fight. So the Bamilikis are like people selling eggs in the market. They don't want that to be pulled and broken. So it looks like they contest with the economic status that they are, and them have been supporting the ruling party because of their economic interests. So I don't see too much hope for Cameroon. The youthful people are going to remember the International Criminal Court, a lot of noise happened.
Nothing.
So our people are like cannon fodder. The Western countries, look at the United States of America. You would expect that Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State of the upholder of democracy in the Western world, should make a statement about a 92-year-old man with poor cognitive abilities is winning an 8th term of an election to rule Cameroon until it turns 100 years. But the United States doesn't care. So this is where we are. I'm very pessimistic about the future of Cameroon.
So they just want resources. So now you also have the Doba oil fields in Chad. And you understand, Savannah Energy is one of the multinationals that owns a lot of this franchise. Then, of course, the Cameroon government and the Chadian government, they also own shares because they transport the oil from the Doba oil fields down to Krivi. So Cameroon receives transportation fees and other fees from this. Now, if, for example, there is an insurgency in the north caused by the people's disaffection, then the militancy of Issa Chiroma Bakari, how do you think this will affect that pipeline?
Well, I believe my example is that of the Biafrans in Nigeria, in the Wari area where the oil comes. The Bakassi boys had a technique called bunkering, where they will go in and burst the pipes and be extracting the oil for sale. Sorry, okay. They'll be extracting the oil to sell it and to make money. Now, the government of Cameroon and the government of the United States and the European Union consider those resources as strategically important to the national security of the West in the context of the Ukraine war, which has made Russian oil scarce in the West. So I am thinking that because of the vital interest they have in the continuous flow of this oil, they are going to try to impose stability in that area with drones that will be overseeing the pipelines and giving more arms to the military. Remember, Prince John, the Western world has never supported democratic change in Africa. They support only potentates. So I don't see any real prospects except that Chiruma goes to the north, to Chad and to Niger and to Nigeria and recruits some troops and Boko Haram to come and fight, which they can do. They can take over Yaoundé very, very easily. But I don't know whether they are ready to do that because there is no prospect of a peaceful change in Cameroon. In fact, if Biya died today, I will not be surprised that Emmanuel Macron will come and install his son as he installed Muhammad Kaka Debi in Chad when Idris Deby died.
So which means when you look at the tea leaves, do you think Issa Chiroma Bakari has really turned to a real opposition candidate or is just an opportunist?
Well, Prince, I want to think that his sojourn of 7 years in the jails of Cameroon and the torture and the abuse that he suffered has something to do with his determination to grab power. Remember, other northern prominent northern leaders like Amadou Vamulke, like Marafa Amidu Yaya, like the other director of the former director of the oil company, Taba Malam, and many other ones who had presidential ambitions have been put in. So I think Chiruma used a Machiavellian method to really lie low and be a fox and be a flatterer, and then he now succeeded in grabbing the electorate, which voted for him as a sign of the disapprobation that they have over the dictatorship. Everybody who voted for Chiruma wanted the 43-year dictatorship to end, and they knew that Chiruma was going to be a transitional candidate, considering the fact that he is actually in his 80s. So Chiruma was the stepping stone for change in Cameroon, and I do not believe that he has said his last word. Do not count Chiruma out until he is really out. The fact that the government of Cameroon was incapable of arresting and incarcerating him as they did with Frundi and Maurice Kamto is very significant.
So what do you think may happen? Do you think an insurgency may happen, looking at the relationship among these countries, the Arab countries?
I would not call it an insurgency.
What would you call it?
I have proposed in this forum that legitimacy flows from the electorate. The people of Cameroon voted for Issa Chiruma, and Issa Chiruma is the legitimate president of Cameroon. Paul Biya is a usurper. So if Issa Chiruma decides to use all means available to him to take power in Yaoundé, for me, it is fair game, and he is supported by the population. He has the legality and the legitimacy to come and wage a war and dislodge that dictatorship, that cabal of more than 200 Betty families and their other friends like the Tangangis and the rest, who have been sucking the nation dry like a leech, with no infrastructure, with sewage all over the country. So if Issa Chiruma was coming to Yaoundé, I think it would be a liberation force. And the military, now that is very divided, because remember, the South is not all agreed on having Ngongo and Chantal to continue ruling, because Paul Biya is not ruling the country. Chantal and Ngongo have been ruling the country.
Yeah, the interesting thing is we hear the polling station in Bastos, where Biya went and cast his vote, did not vote for him.
Yes, Prince.
Wow.
Yeah, the government.
Then how would Ambazonia vote for him when his own people in Yaoundé refused to vote for him? So what's wrong with Ambazonia?
No, Prince John, do not blame Ambazonians.
So what's happening?
The government of Cameroon is built on fraud, perpetual fraud. I have been an electoral officer on the ground. My father was an electoral officer in 1961 during the plebiscite. Before he came, I was a child. Before he came to Berlin, I said, Daddy, the radio boy has already announced that you people have 100%. Where are you going with those boxes? That is, yes. That is says.
So which means an election is already a foregone conclusion.
Oh, yes. They go to the tax records of 1940 and they stuff the ballots with the people who have died. And they create a separate ballot box. It's your tribesman, and not Abraham Segbe, who is responsible for that job.
Oh, mon petit fils Egbe.
Yeah, but Paul Biya calls him mon fils Egbe. When you work for the dictatorship, you are recruited into the family. You become a member of the Nkunkuma family, so you can do things with impunity, and that is what I have come to see. I told you how they could create all kinds of fake lists and decide that they have won. Now, why do they hold the tallies of the procès-verbal or the what they call the electoral transcripts? Why do they hold the electoral transcripts for 2 weeks? Because they are cooking the books. Mm-hmm. The time now adjust the Governor Achu, he was the governor of the Eastern Province in 1992. Was the first legislator who ran from Cameroon and came here. The presidency required that every governor should make sure that he vote. He won about 8%. That will be for you to keep your post in government. Ordered fighting in Manu because I was campaigning for the SDF. The SDF beat him in Manu.
Who is Peter Gotabi?
Well, Peter Gotabi is a founder of higher education from your constituency, Manu. He was a very vocal supporter of the government, and he was this very gung-ho supporter. If you did not support the government, you were supposed to be rusticated. He had no time for people who did not support Paul Biya, and he had the ambitions of becoming prime minister.
So did he become prime minister?
No, he did not.
What happened?
Prince John. That's a story for another day. I think let's concentrate on the election.
Okay.
That's a story for another day. Anglophone Cameroonians fight for positions that don't have any real power, but it's an opportunity for it. Prince John, vice speaker of the National Assembly, all she was doing was collect 500 million represent her in the United States and collecting money. And somebody collecting money, I'm just telling you at this small level of corruption, collecting 5 million CFA francs from 180 people.
But I hear the guys in the LECAM and the Constitutional Council even collect more.
But this is a corrupt system. In Cameroon, the French have...
Starting with Clement Atangana.
Clement Atangana, who is Biya's uncle, who Biya put into the magistrature. This is a family thing. Prince, I say
so
it's a narco-terrorist nation. Look at Glencore. Glencore meets British and American courts that they carried bags of cash in private jets and gave to Cameroon, to Angola, to Nigeria, to Congo, Brazzaville. More than 7 countries.
In Cameroon, who they give the money to?
They give the money to Ngongo, to Mudiki.
What about Chantal herself?
Of course. If they give it to Ngongo, know that it is in Chantal's hands.
Okay.
You know, Chantal is the substitute husband of... Ngongo is the substitute husband of Chantal, because Paul Biya has his erectile dysfunction for the longest time. He's not been performing. So now Chantal sexual blackmail against Paul Biya, because whenever Chantal says one is, Paul Biya will say, if we donate some, this is where we are. The Western world likes this kind of setup. They want a potentate. You see, when you read things like Pierre Péan, La République des Mallettes, dans la principauté française du non-droit, the Republic of Briefcases, in the French Principality of Lawlessness. They are describing the lawlessness of Valéry Giscard d'Estaing coming and sleeping with the many wives of Emperor Bokassa and seizing Catherine the Queen, and now starting to fight for Catherine the Queen with another French diplomat, René Jonique, to the point where he puts a bomb for René Jonique to be killed.
Wow.
These are the kinds of things that happen in tropical Africa. Bongo had so much authority. Robert Bourgi explains it in his book. Bongo was telling Chirac who to appoint in what position in France, because all the oil, all the timber from the Congo went to sustain the French political class. And Loïc Leflore-Prigent, who was the director of Elf Aquitaine, he told him that, okay, to divide the money equally, give the same amount to the right and to the left. But it was the right, the Gaullist party, General de Gaulle, Jacques Chirac, Jacques Foccart, the people who ran the system. Robert Bourgi explains it. Ils savent que je sais tout. They know that I know all. So this is a corrupt system that the French have imposed in third world, in African countries.
And they're still imposing.
Nothing is going to change. There is no infrastructure. It's what I call malign neglect. They conduct these elections, but now the young men are getting more and more agitated. The only guarantee for a democracy is an informed public. So the people are getting informed. That's why it's getting more and more difficult to repress them.
So do you think Cameroon may turn out like Burkina Faso with Ibrahim Traore?
Well, that would maybe be the best way for them to go, but I don't think they can get there so fast, because you see, with the amount of resources in Cameroon and the pecuniary nature of the tribes of Cameroon, the Africans in Cameroon, the Bantus in Cameroon are very hungry people. They talk about la politique du ventre et du bas-ventre. In Cameroon, the politicians want to feed to stuff their stomachs and their bank accounts, and they don't really care. They care about.
They don't care about principle.
Yeah, so it's difficult. The Muslim religion has actually affected the way the Sahel West African nations behave. Look at how the Senegalese put Ousmane Sonko and Diomaye Faye in power. They defied the former president. What's his name? Before Abdoulaye Wade, there was what's his name? Macky Sall, who had to go on exile because he was very corrupt. But the Diomaye Faye and Sonko were pushed by the population to take over power, and the determination of the population that kind of determination, that level of determination, you can only have it in the north of Cameroon, and that is what I fear. Because you see, the point is that we should be very careful who claim to make analysis. Things are aggravating every day. What happened in 1992 or 2018 cannot be the same thing. Look at the Amazonians. They were laughing at them. They were using rubber guns to shoot down helicopters. Now they are going to start using drones to get their freedom. So there's no way you can suppress a people forever.
So do you think the Northerners may be able to rise and come down to take power in Yaoundé?
That is a possibility. Remember, a lot of them are well funded. There are people in jails. Of the Cameroonian jails have like 23 ministers who are millionaires, who have money. They have an interest in fighting for power. They say in French, l'argent c'est le nez de la guerre.
But why have they done nothing? All this time elections were taking place, like Mebego. I was thinking that people like that tried to strike.
Well, it's unpredictable. They are under lock and key. They are under serious surveillance. So, but the situation in Cameroon is pregnant. People are tired of the dictatorship. People are tired of the leadership by proxy. And if I sit here and say that, oh, after the elections, things are going to calm down, I'll be deceiving myself. Cameroonians do not want to continue this dictatorship. And I said in this program, the average lifespan of a dictatorship is 40 years. After that, these are the last kicks of a dying horse. So I do not anticipate, I do not expect that the Biya regime will continue peacefully for a long time.
So do you think Biya may resign and give power to Ngongo when you look at the tea leaves?
No, I know that. Let me go to a little anecdote I've told here, Prince. When Houphouët-Boigny, the leader of Ivory Coast, the most francophile of all African leaders, was dying in a hospital in Paris. He was in and out of a coma for 8 months. And when he asked the doctor, how long have I been here? And the doctor said, you've been here for 8 months. He said, oh, but all this while, who is the president of Ivory Coast? He said, no. Then the doctor just picked up quickly. He said, no, you are still the president. So long as you are alive, you remain the president. And in his frail voice, right in the dying bed, he still said, oh, yes, I don't want any other person to be the president of Ivory Coast. And the doctor reassured him. That is the bunker mentality of dictators. Paul Biya is so scared because of the rituals and the theft and the fact that all his hangers on will be implicated in all these scandals. He wants to die in power.
So when you look at somebody like Issa Chiroma Bakari, it looks like he's an insider and he has a file and all these people. So do you think they may be afraid of that too?
Of course. Issa Chiroma Bakari stuck out at a very strategic point. While they were looking at eliminating Maurice Kamto, he pulled out. And I am very suspicious of his relationship with the French. I don't know what will happen, but I do not see even the French accepting that another Southerner should take over. But another scenario is the Olingi Gema scenario, where le professeur what's his name? The guy who won the election that Ali Bongo stole. the Professor
Osa.
Ondo Osa,
Ondo
who
Osa.
won the election. They gave him a big chunk of money. And when they asked him a question, he said, "No, I don't want to talk about the money. I am no more running for office." So I mean, they say when your mouth is full, you don't speak. So this is the system. They give you money and they tell you, take the money and be quiet or we'll kill you. So sometimes you look at your family, as most of them are like, okay, what am I going to do? I don't know what to do. But so long as you are not ready to come to exile and suffer the indignities of coming to exile and standing by our convictions as we have done for 30 years, you in that environment, it's a corrupting environment. They will destroy your family, destroy your family members, and most of the time you will have to give in.
Yeah, so I can take you back. I remember when we were in the university, we live history. The day Ahijo resigned and gave power to Paul Biya, we were on the campus of Yaoundé University.
Yes.
Do you remember?
1982. Prince Ojong were leaving your daddy's house, and I was going down to Carrefour Obili, and everybody was closing his store because they believed that après Ahijo c'est le déluge. They thought that there was going to be a civil war. Cameroonians at that age had known only Ahijo, and they didn't see Ahijo resigning. In fact, it was rumored that Paul Biya was the one who led the delegation to go and beg him to stay in power.
True.
But these are all stories, because I now know from evidentiary record of the people who have now published their memoirs that it is Mitterrand who removed Ahijo, because Ahijo prevented him from coming to help Ernest Wanzi as an attorney. He was a socialist attorney in France in 1972 when Ernest Wanzi was going to be killed. And guess what, Prince Ojong? It is the Ambazonian, Southern Cameroonian lawyers, Luke Senze, Goji Dinka, who went to the military tribunal to defend Ernest Wanzi.
And you know the role of Goji Dinka in the Ambazonian struggle.
Yes.
What can you tell your people about it?
These are real leaders. Those are our own Mandelas. They have stood single-handedly. They put the issue of our independence back on the map. The falsification of the history of Cameroon had virtually obliterated our fight. But people like Goji Dinka, Luke Senze, Carlson Anyangwe, Siga Sanga, Albert Mukong, these are the people who put back. And you see, that is why the Ambazonian struggle is very, very powerful. It was started by lawyers who interpreted the law, and they took this matter right to Ibrahim Gambari at the United Nations, and they exhausted all the peaceful avenues. They went through the Nigerian High Court in Abuja. They went through the Human Rights Court, the African Union Commission on Human and People's Rights in Banjul, in the Gambia, and they have exhausted all the peaceful avenues.
So what's wrong with the United Nations then?
The United Nations is a toothless bulldog. They care about you when you can fight and put your matter on the table. The Southern Sudanese did not even have a case that was legally legitimate like ours. They now have their independence. It is independence through the barrel of the gun. And maybe that is the way it's going to end.
Then why did they keep talking about silencing the guns? So the guns will not go silent.
The people who are talking about silencing the guns are hypocrites. Okay. They are people who are benefiting from the war, like Ngongo and Atanganji. War is a racket. They go to Paul Biya all the time and say, please give us some more money so we can suppress this war. And then the generals are making money. There is a general in Bamenda who has built 4-story buildings.
What's his name?
Napoleon Aga. He is from whom? He has built 4-story buildings.
So where are the story buildings?
Oh yeah, people will identify them. I'm just giving you an example.
Okay, I'm just wondering so that if you know where the story buildings are, just let us know on this show. Okay,
Prince. The other generals that have been making money, extorting money from people. They take money. One of my friends, an engineer, he was met with only WhatsApp on his phone. They seized 400,000 from him, and they said if he could not produce that money, they will shoot him and they will put a Dane gun on his body and go and show him that he's an amber fighter. So the military really enjoys this situation of lawlessness in Southern Cameroon. That is why, notwithstanding all the efforts that foreign countries like the Swiss or the Canadians have made to resolve this matter peacefully, it is the government of Cameroon that has refused the resolution.
Then you look at Biya. When Biya came to power in 82, we look at him like somebody who was presenting a new deal.
Yes, it was.
L'appel du destin. You went to Mvumeka. Tell the story.
Professor John, people like Famendongo, who's we're going to be talking. These are the apparatchiks of the system who have built a whole career of 40 years in praising Paul Biya and in deifying Paul Biya, turning Paul Biya into a deity, so that they can wreck the treasury, can steal money. Famendongo has stolen money to go buy computers in China and brought junk. The same amount of money that Famendongo took to go buy computers in Taiwan or China, the Ivorian government used the same amount of money to build a computer factory in Ivory Coast, and they were producing computers. So this is how profligate our leadership is. If that whole leadership is not wiped out, there will be no new dispensation in Cameroon. And that is why they are very scared. They have no political future after the departure of Paul Biya. And I believe that these people, even if Paul Biya died, they could put him in a fridge for more than 2 years just to continue ruling. But it's not going to continue.
Then I will hear near Jifenji, I hear he died 4 months ago. They just announced just 2 days ago that he died.
Yeah, they do strategic announcements. Ufwed Boigny died. It took 8 months for the death of Ufwed Boigny of Ivory Coast to be announced. I'm very close to Ivorian friends. They were telling me that he died a long time ago, and they were hiding it because of the need for political stability in these countries, because of the exploitation of the resources. When Kabila died in the Congo, when Kabila was killed, they took his corpse to South Africa, pretending that he was in the hospital, and they went and took a young man from Rwanda who came and was buried the name Joseph Kabila and ruled the country for more than 10 years. Yes. He was not even his son. So these multinational corporations look at African countries as banana republics, quarries for the exploitation of raw materials, plantations. That is the way they look at it. And for them, all they need is stability. Now, another dimension, Western countries are scared about the growth of the demography of Africa. They are not delivering children in the Western world. Their churches are empty. In fact, they are recruiting African pastors to go and be preaching in Europe now because the churches are empty. They're using them like basketball stadiums. So the population of Africa is a threat to the West. And if they can curb this population, you remember the mission where the population is limited by war and pestilence. They still believe in the nutrition theory to curb the population of Africa. When Bill Gates is not moving around to spread vaccines or inoculations that will render women barren. These things are happening. So we have to be very conscious. That is why, Prince, when we're talking about all these things, they're not going to help us until we tear down the borders inherited from colonialism and start building a continental nation.
What about the current book that we're going to get this book on Amazon very soon?
Yes.
But why not talk about this book a little bit? I've read it already, but I just want you to talk about it.
Prince, the Afro, the single African currency, is the sole guarantee for sovereign independence. It is the sine qua non condition for transforming the economy of Africa to a crucible of innovation with machine tool factories, with magnetic radiation trains from Cairo, from Dakar to Mombasa. During COVID-19, we had the best homologists in the world. We couldn't productions because we anchor this currency on a basket of 30 strategic resources: gold, silver, diamond, coltan, copper, even palm oil, and all that. And our scientists will index all these products and put them in a basket, in a fluctuating basket. Now, that basket will be linked to the Afro, which will be our currency, and all the other countries of the world will be obligated to pay us in our currency before they can get our resources. That way, we don't have to go borrow money to build our own infrastructure. This is the way forward. And Prince, for the rest of my life, I want to fight for the single currency.
Okay. So what are the dynamics? Because from what I've read here, when we have a single currency, we'll be able to trade. Then we're going to replace the dollar as the major.
Yes. Okay. Since 1945, the U.S. has reneged on its obligation, which was signed into law at the Bretton Woods as an international treaty at the Bretton Woods Conference, that every time you hold a dollar, you can retrieve it for 35 ounces of gold. In this book, I prove how General de Gaulle and Jack Ruth came to President Johnson in 1965 and told him, Mr. President, you've been printing too many dollars. We have too much stock of euro dollars. We want to bring it back to you for you to give us our gold. And President Johnson told him secretly that, okay, do not make a lot of noise about it. We're going to allow you to take back your gold. So in 1965, France took 3,300 pounds of gold from Fort Knox, from New York, and from London, and took it back to the Bank of France. That is why the Bank of France has the largest stock of gold in the world. Maybe the Chinese are beating them now, but in the Western world, they have that stock of gold, because that non-perishable metal with the quadruple quantity characters of a medium of exchange, a store for value, a means of accounting, and a currency for exchange of goods and services, and a means of payment, a measure of deferred payment. Mm-hmm. These four qualities can only be sustained by precious metals, and precious metals that do not depreciate. And the currency cannot be fiat currency, paper just printed like that. Like the United States has been printing the dollar and waging wars. They carried dollars in C-130 planes and were distributing it in Afghanistan, all over the place. So the quality of the dollar is falling. Now, with the multipolarity, they're talking about the BRICS. I don't trust the BRICS. I am against the BRICS. You guys were going to be surprised. I care about the United States because the New York Stock Exchange has the most reliable rule of law principles where you can have your wealth. Jack Ma keeps his wealth here. Elon Musk can keep. This is the only country where you can be richer than the president, and the political system will not struggle to take your money. So we are going to fight to institute the Afro, the single currency for Africa, and that is what we are going to. It's going to be a great leap forward for the continent.
Ibrahim Traore is already talking about the Afro. If you guys have been watching Ibrahim Traore and the Federation of the Sahel, AES,
yes,
they are talking about the Afro. So it's an idea that has to happen. Its time has come.
Prince.
But Larry, you've been talking about this Afro concept for more than 20 years, since I've known you.
Yes, I have sent
the book has finally come.
I have sent a copy to the Malian government. I've sent a copy to the Burkina Faso government. I've sent a copy to the Niger government. And I have made soft copies available. This is the first blueprint for us to perfect it and clean it up, because we have the quantum computing, the AI components, and the ETF components that will be integrated into this currency. Now, we know that the Western world is going to oppose it and are going to try to look for all kinds of shenanigans, but we are not scared of them. We are going to make sure that this currency should be the legal tender for the continent of Africa, and that is what is going to free us, because this book is dedicated to our young men who are dying in the oceans, going to seek greener pastures in Europe. And when you look at what is in Europe, is what they stole from us. So we're going to make sure that we create an enabling environment in Africa. And the only way to do that, as Rothschild says it, give me the currency, and I don't care who makes the laws. So the currency is very important for emancipating the continent of Africa. Self-determination for Africa comes only through having their own currency.
And you guys should understand, with the CFA, which stands for Colonie Française d'Afrique.
Yeah.
You know what happens to that currency. France uses it to control the entire Francophone Africa.
Yeah, Prince.
So explain to them how it works.
Okay, Prince. This book really tears down the whole CFA concept in a way that the English-speaking Africans or Western scholars who do not understand French, who don't read the French literature, cannot tear it down. I tear down the whole structure, the Nazi structure of a French.
But tell them first how France uses the CFA like a tool of control of the entire Francophone Africa.
Okay,
tell them.
Okay, Prince, let me give you an example. 1993, I was working for the radio in Cameroon, and Mitterrand decided to devalue the CFA by 50%. That means that the value automatically fell. A thing that you were buying for 10,000 CFA francs now costs 20,000 CFA francs. The French, as I've explained from Professor Chunjang Pomwe, Professor Agboho, Nicolas Agboho, and CFA, it was a tool by the French colonial masters to corral the resources of Africa. The Compte d'Opération forces African countries to keep their reserves in the French bank. In fact, it is estimated that they keep more than 500 million of their reserves. And the CFA itself is printed in Chamalières in France. And when they print that currency in France, to transport it to African countries pay 1/4 of the value. So this is just a tool for the perpetual exploitation of the continent. I laid down all the steps that they've been using. And you see, the Europeans pretend that, oh no, we have not met the convergence principles yet. We've not met the convergence values to be able to create a single currency. I debunked that. I showed that the United States of America, Switzerland, China, Russia all created a single currency without any convergence values. So this is going to be a wonderful book for us to debate and deepen the information and conceive our own currency for the continent.
Yeah, and another point is going to help Africa because Africa is in international trades. Africa needs money to pay for in the international community. So if our own currency, we'll be using that to make the payment instead of using the dollar.
We'll obligate countries who want our strategic resources to pay us in our currency.
Using the Afro.
Yes. Right now, we spend more than $50 billion in lost revenue through transactions. When you want to send money, Prince Ojong, from a bank in Cameroon, for example, to a bank in Rwanda, it will be routed through the SWIFT system for a bank in Europe or in America. And all those fees are paid before the money gets to Rwanda. It's all depleted. And projects cannot be funded among Africans. In fact, intra-African trade is not up to 20%. So because of the impediment of the currency, we cannot even fund. The World Bank, the IMF, the Chinese, or the Russians cannot fund magnetic levitation trains that we need to link the economy and to create the largest single market in the world that will make Africa to become the richest continent. In fact, I've been predicting that in 100 years we'll colonize Europe.
That's true. And I'm sure a lot of the African youth will be happy if we can colonize Europe.
Yeah,
because that would be a big change.
Yeah, I mean, history is an evolution. They occupied us, they colonized us. Now we are gaining technology, we're gaining the knowledge that we are a companion that no despotism can enslave. We are getting freer and bolder. We now know that the Bretton Woods system was a fraud. We now know that the Chinese are trying to impose their laws on Africa through their Belt and Road Initiative. We don't want to skip from one imperialism to another. We want to assert ourselves as Africans. And the Afro is going to be the institution, the currency that is going to be built by Africans alone, because we have Africans who are geniuses in quantum computing, in AI, I mean, we're going to build a very sophisticated financial system where it will be hacker-proof, it will be ransomware-proof, we'll be modernizing it, and we will keep the secrets in the continent of Africa. So this is a project for the future.
So with the elections in Cameroon, what do you think the youths are going to go from here?
There is going to be a lot of killing. The young men are ready to sacrifice their lives. And as I say all the time, ideas are spread when they are watered by the blood of martyrs. These young men who are dying for freedom in Cameroon are the ones that are going to build the society of the future. The Biya regime has ended, as far as I'm concerned. All what is happening now are the last kicks of a dying horse. Those who are around him, the Ngongos and the Chantal, are trying to hold on, and are using the ability to hold on, but I do not believe that they are going to succeed. The people are going to finally prevail.
So with the military, we understand there's a lot of division in the military. It looks like Ferdinand Gongo controls B. But what about the army itself?
The details of that are very, very nebulous. But what is important is that the Southerners are divided. They do not want Ngongo to be president. And because they know that Ngongo is a proxy for Chantal Biya. Now, Chantal Biya wants her own son, Frank S., to be the president because he doesn't like Frank Biya. So the divisions there may be a palace coup. It is very difficult to see clearly in terms of all the shenanigans and the night of daggers that are now passing through the palace. So for somebody to tell you clearly that this is what is happening. But Chiruma is a stepping stone in the right direction.
Okay, what about international legitimacy? How is Chiruma going to get it?
I believe that you can't, it's by doing and daring that Rome was built. It's not by the stupid policies that cowards call caution. He should go out there and challenge the legitimacy of the Biya dictatorship. He's eloquent in English and French. He has so many supporters who are bilingual. He has the legitimacy. He has to fight for it. He cannot allow it to peter out like Fundi did in 1992 or Kamto did in 2018. I believe that is.
So, what are look at most of the opposition guys have already elected from that. Yep. So they don't even believe in anything.
This is what it is. Politics is the greatest business in Cameroon. Cameroon has more than 400 political parties. It's easier to create a political party in Cameroon than to create a business. So you have people, whippersnappers like Cabral Libi, Matomba, all kinds of people who are really working for the regime. I mean, even somebody like Fridolin K, who said that he's a philosopher, turned around and said that he's supporting Paul Biya.
But what about Oshi? I hear he's collecting money too.
Of course, Joshua Oshi has always been a joke. I've never believed in him. I know him.
So tell us about him. How did he become the chairman of SDF?
Okay, Joshua came with a lot of money from his Swiss bank account and his dealings, his private dealings with the Biya regime. He used to lease planes to them. Oshi is a corrupt little pot-bellied guy. There's no hope for him in Cameroon, as far as I'm concerned. He will end with this regime. He's part of the regime. The beautiful ones are not yet born. The newer generation of young southern Cameroonians who are going to build their own nation and be able to negotiate with French Cameroon are coming up. We don't have any future with French Cameroon.
About I hear those are one of the first.
Anis Kane was the leader of Mani movement. UPC, which broke out from after the government of Cameroon destroyed the UPC. Kodok has its own branch. Hog Belen had its own branch. The strategy: divide and rule, divide and weaken. This is what they've done all the time. So, in fact, it is clear with all the money that they were given, they were guaranteed that they should not endorse Chiroma. So you notice, put like Cabral Libi came out and said, I am number 3. How did you know you are number 3? Who is number 2 and number 1? You cannot be able to determine that you are number 3 unless you know who number 2 and number 1 is. So this is how the whole system has been rigged from inside. Elekam, that is a huge fraud machine. We cannot have free. Now, this is the death knell for anybody who claims that there can be free and fair elections in Cameroon. This is the death knell for all the people who are saying, oh, go register and vote and protect your vote. I looked at them and laughed. It doesn't depend on how many people register. They refuse to even put people on electoral registers because they knew the strategy was to make sure they divide the opposition in a way that Biya wins. Media people are paid to spread the narrative that, oh, Cameroon has the weakest opposition in the world. Those are the things that they do.
I've seen those reports.
The newspapers are paid to write all that.
That's the dumbest opposition.
Yeah, they said they cannot. Yeah, because how can an opposition survive when you are paid not to collaborate with your friend?
Yeah, and I understand Biya knows that he lost the 2025 elections. I've been told from insiders in Etudi that on October 13th, Biya's people told him he has lost the election. So he did, no, il faut changer. Moi, j'ai encore un peu de temps pour rester là. Vous comprenez? Je vais rester là. Donne l'argent pour qu'on me laisse ici.
Prince, did you see the last press conference between Emmanuel Macron and Paul Biya?
Yes.
When Paul Biya could not even answer questions. It was Emmanuel Macron who was justifying, explaining. And have you noticed that no Western country has come to condemn the fact that a 93-year-old person is staying in power up to the age of 100?
Because
isn't that telling?
Biya is giving them resources.
They don't care.
Resources.
Yeah. All the wars
the
are
potholes are there in Cameroon. So long as Biya is giving money to France, he can stay in power forever. And
when he dies, his son will take over. The son of Muhammad Kaka Debi took over in as Nyasibe Adema took over from his father. Paul Ema took over from his father. Bongo took over. These are family hegemonies that the West create Africa. Yoweri Museveni, his son is trying to take over from him.
A big fool.
Yeah. So this is how the West wants Africa to remain. And it's for us to realize that the way to take this down is to tear down the nation states and ensure power back to them. That is the only future for Africa.
That's good.
Yeah.
So what should the young people do? I know they are sacrificing themselves, going out to protest, they are killing them. What else should they do?
They should be creative. They should be engaged. They should be involved. If you do not do politics, politics will do you. And you have to participate. You don't dream. Those who only lie in bed and dream, they see only dreams. Go out there and take massive action. Take massive action. Remain focused on the fact that Paul Biya is an illegitimate leader, and you can render the country ungovernable, because at one point these Western countries will realize that, look, you cannot guarantee our economic interests. You've been there for too long. You should leave. That is how Mobutu left. That is how Bokassa left. That is how Ben Ali left. That is how Bongo left. So that is the way we have to go.
What about Ivory Coast? I know Ivorians too are waiting. What can you say about their elections?
Alassane Ouattara has run for the 4th term, and Emmanuel Macron congratulated him for deciding not to leave power, even when he had promised that he was going to leave power, and he reneged on his promise. Alassane Ouattara, Emmanuel Macron came to praise him. So long as these people are making their resources available to the French. Remember, the French are being threatened by the spread of China and by the spread of Russia. So when they have these regimes, these vassal regimes that are pro-West, they treat them with kid gloves. They hold them very carefully. So they support them. The Congo, the Gabon, the Ivory Coast, Benin and Togo, all those little countries, Cameroon, the French want to continue to keep that stranglehold on them. And so the only way to keep that stranglehold is to have dictators. They don't want popular leaders who are nationalistic, who think about the resources, who want to turn the apple cart. So we have to continue the battle.
So what do you think will happen to Maurice Kamto?
I cannot say. I do not believe very much that Maurice Kamto is a very ambitious politician. A very ambitious politician. I think he's too circumspect. He's too careful. We need somebody with more pep. Okay. That's an older generation of people. We are in our 60s. We should be pumping new blood to this thing, giving it to people in their 40s and younger people who are more creative, who are more enterprising, who are more personable, who are ready to take risk. There's no way for you to change a regime like that without you being ready to take risk. So, and I don't think Kamto wants to take any risk.
And I look at, Kamto personally. I think Kamto was a teacher at the RIG, right?
Kamto taught me at the RIG, international law, a very brilliant professor. That's where he met his wife, who was our classmate. But the problem with the dispensation in Cameroon, it is not for traditional politicians. It is for people, revolutionaries, people who are ready to make the move, people who are ready to turn the apple cart, people who are ready to take the bull by the horns. And Kamto doesn't seem to have that kind of temperament.
So where are you going to find those kind of people in Cameroon then?
Oh, yeah. 8 million Cameroonians. We have dynamic young people. In Ambazonia, we have dynamic young people who are going to stand for the battle, the final battle, when we'll be negotiating with French Cameroon. Because right now, we have a very strong case. We want them to see what we went through. They burned more than 300 villages in our own area. Mm-hmm. Now see what is happening to them. That's why, as Pastor Niemula said during the Nazi regime, they came for the communists. I was quiet. I said, I'm not a communist. They came for the socialists. I was quiet. I said, I'm not a socialist. But when they came for me, there was nobody to cry. So it has been real disingenuous for Cameroonian leaders, Cameroonian politicians, not to have opened their mouth to speak when Ambazonians were being killed, when there was a genocide in our territory. Now they are seeing how that heavy hand of the bee is being placed on top of them, and they're crying out. That is what we suffer. We are not happy that they're suffering it, but we are like, okay, this is what we have been suffering. And you have been calling us terrorists just for protesting, just for seeking your civil rights. You are being repressed, which is not the future.
I saw most of those big vehicles, water cannons, spreading water on protesters.
Yeah, spreading peppery water attacking them, some live bullets. This is what is prevailing. Autocracy gained all over the world. Democracy is in retreat all over the world. These are not beautiful times for freedom.
Wow. So this is really sad. So what do you think is going to happen to Chantal?
Okay. The playbook
She said,
for Chantal.
Mom, je gouverne au Cameroun.
The playbook for Chantal is the same playbook for Marie Antoinette, for Imelda Marcos, for Grace Mugabe, for Valerie Bongo. As the husband ends up, that is how she's going to have to live. She will be lucky to leave that country with her cachet of money. That is the only way. She has no political future in Cameroon, as far as I'm concerned. Wrong. They have not seen the former first
Je
lady.
gouverne au Cameroun, non?
Jusqu'à ce que son mari meurt. Immediately Paul Biya dies, that will be the end of Chantal. And she should be lucky that she has a safe passage to go enjoy the rest of the loot in the shops in Switzerland or in Europe, because that's what she does, shopping and dancing.
Okay. And she sets a very good example for her daughter too, right?
Prince, I don't. That's mental illness. When in my culture, when you are down, we cannot continue pressing on you. I think Enga needs medical care. She has a lot of challenges, and for me,
why are the parents not helping her?
It's a very difficult situation to help people with mental illness. I have that incident in my family, so I know about it. So it's something to sympathize with and to work with. She's a victim of the illness, and that's the way I look at it. I don't really care about I don't care about those who are trying to attack the children.
What about Atananji? So far, it looks like he has mellowed.
Well, the situation is very clear. These people are sustaining a tottering edifice. The edifice is collapsing in their face. These people are buying first-class seats for the sinking Titanic. The Titanic is sinking. Can't they see? They can see.
They can see?
But they're pretending.
Oh, I just thought maybe they are just blind.
Because they have no other way to go. So they're preparing that, let's go to the hotel and no popping champagne, that, everything is moving well. But the reality will catch up with them. It's like riding a tiger. You can't dismount. When you dismount, the tiger will devour you. So I think that days are numbered. But hey, I can't really tell when they're going. But clearly, when you look at the way regimes end and the apparatchiks of the regime, how they end up, I don't see them having any glorious, because the crimes that Ngongo and Atanganji are committing are crimes of use cogents. They're crimes of genocide, crimes of killings that will not be tolerated in Western countries. When Pinochet went to Spain, the Spanish courts have jurisdiction to arrest him. They put out a warrant of arrest on him. And there are people who will credibly testify about the atrocities of Atanganji, the killings in Pinyin, the payments to kill people, false flag attacks. All those things are going to come out. And I don't really see a future for them.
So you think Atanganji may go to the ICC or it may come to America?
I don't trust the ICC. The ICC is a court for victors. They took Gbagbo to the ICC for 8 years, and they discharged and acquitted him because the French were pushing. I talked to Maître Altit, Gbagbo's lawyer, and he told me that the ICC is controlled by Western powers. They look at the Khan, who was trying to investigate the Israeli prime minister. They just brought sexual accusations of sexual misconduct on him, and they put him out. So these people don't want justice. Look at what is happening in the United States. Do you think we still have a justice system here?
No.
Justice is for the poor. The rich are insulated and are covered. So that is the sorry situation in which we are. But we should not despair, because this is only for a season. Things are going to change, and we who believe in freedom, we know that we'll prevail. I keep quoting Martin Luther King. The arc of the universe turns slowly, but it turns towards justice.
So what future may be there for Ambazonia?
Ambazonia has a bright future of the recognition of its independence by the sheer force and conviction of its people. Everybody is learning about the falsification of the history of Cameroon, where they did not recognize the right of Ambazonians to self-determination. I keep quoting Article 1514 of the United Nations General Assembly, which required the colonial powers to grant independence to all colonized people, irrespective of their economic, political, or educational conditions. They did not do that. They went and brought the Philistine report to claim that we could not sustain ourselves. Now, all that information is coming out. And in the United States, we are getting ready to file for a declaratory judgment in the Supreme Court of the United States for the United States government not to consider Ambazonia as a rebel movement, to consider the Ambazonian struggle as a legitimate, bona fide self-determination to the struggle of American colonization. Where we are going, and I'm very positive we're going to win.
Sisters, we've had a great show for you. So comments, go to YouTube and make your comments. Tell us what you think, because we want to know what you're thinking, so we can bring you better shows like this. Bye-bye.
An informed public is the only guarantee for democracy. Be quiet. Speak out. Nobody can silence your voice. God bless you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
How long was
that? Almost an hour.
Okay.
So I have a lot of information. Okay.